I'm Shwa, and you are listening to Light Up with Shwa, a weekly podcast to open our hearts and minds on a journey with me. Hi, Yelena.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Thank you for taking out time, and I am really excited about our conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, good. All right, tell me briefly about yourself, who you are, what do you do?
Well, I'm Yelena, and I'm an attorney, and I've been Boston-based for the past 8 years. Prior to that, I grew up in upstate New York, and I was born in Russia. So I...
Does Trump know that?
Hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully he stays far away. So I grew up with the child of an immigrant in a small town with mainly all born and raised many generation Americans. And then really liked the appeal of the big cities. So I ended up relocating to Boston in my 20s and never looked back. Really enjoyed the city life.
Wow, nice. Thank you. So let's talk a little about how your parents did parenting with you. So tell me about how do you rate them?
I think they're amazing parents. I think they are people that really wanted to be parents, that really love being parents. And they continue to love being parents.
Okay.
They still try to parent me all the time.
Do you like that? Or you do it gets on your nerves?
Yeah, probably, right? But they always tell me, we're still going to be your parents.
That's true. That is true. But
do
do they interfere in your life? You're independent. You're an attorney. You are on your own. How does it go? How do you handle it?
I think they try to let me be my independent self because they know that's what I like. I definitely count for them on support, and at times I think probably maybe they're a little bit too much or whatnot. Who knows? But in general, I think I really count on them for their support.
Support in what sense?
Sometimes if I have any kind of problem, they're the ones that I would go to. In general, at the very end, they're still mom and dad.
So I understand you have nieces and nephews?
I have 2 nieces.
Okay, 2 nieces.
Yes.
No nephews. Okay.
No nephews.
And how do you interact with them? Like, do you like children?
I love children. I remember I was in the hospital when my sister had the baby, and it was so emotional. I got to see my eldest niece through the window because she was temporarily in the NICU unit. So watching her, it was just so cute. And for whatever reason, she was born with spiky hair. So it looked so cute. So I just fell in love right away. It was immediate. I don't think I was ever that into kids, primarily because when you live in the city, you really don't interact with children that much.
Yeah.
And once in a while you see children, so it was here and there. So my nieces were the first time that I got to see kids on a regular basis, hold the babies, and just watch them grow up. Now my niece is 7, and so they're just so much fun, and they introduce you to new things, new websites, watching children's movies again.
So do you see your childhood different than theirs? Like when you were growing up, is there any similarity with them?
So there are some similarities. My niece is a Girl Scout. My sister and I were Girl Scouts, and her grandma on her father's side was a Girl Scout. So seeing that is really cool to go through that again. So much of my parents, they couldn't really pass on some of the things that they did, primarily because they were raising kids in a different country. So having that...
In Russia, right?
Yeah. Well, they grew up in Russia, and we grew up, my sister and I, in America. So, for example, Girl Scouts were probably something a little bit new to them because in the Soviet Union there was something similar, but not quite the same.
Do you speak Russian?
I like to say I speak Rushglish, which is a combination of Russian and English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all in once.
Okay.
By analogy, like Spanglish. Or
So say something in Russian, what can you say? Like,
I can say "Здравствуйте," it means hello.
okay.
Or "Привет," which means hi.
Okay.
It's really fun to hear my nieces speak a little bit of Russian. They can pick up a few words. They can say like carrot.
So your sister speaks with them?
She tries to. She tries to say a little bit,
here and there.
bit, so they can say hi. And they speak with an American accent.
What is hope in Russian?
Oh, I have to think about that. It's hard for me to translate. It's hard for me to.
Okay.
I can translate from Russian to English.
So you never
faster.
continue to like interact with the language?
I got really into YouTube in my 20s, and I started listening to Russian R&B, and that kind of brought me back into my Russian roots. And then later on, I joined a Russian Jewish group, so I met a lot of children of Russian immigrants that are like myself. And they tend to greet each other in Russian, so they'll say, hi, how are you? And then they'll fall back into English. So that was kind of nice. So in that way, I can... I was just visiting my sister recently, and I was reading children's books in Russian to my niece.
Oh, nice.
And for the most part, I could understand almost everything.
So but there was no word on hope there?
Right.
Good. Okay, well, how do you say good?
Хорошо.
Хорошо?
Yeah.
Oh, хорошо. It's a difficult language, right? Is it hard to learn?
I think
For
so.
a person who doesn't know like me, it would be like, yeah, obviously. But
probably all languages are probably hard to learn.
well, no, there are some like this, Chinese and Russian.
Yeah.
Some are really hard. But yeah, well, I guess you're right. Tell me about like, do you know any challenges that your parents had while you both were growing up? You're two sisters only.
Yeah, two sisters.
Yeah.
I would guess probably trying to raise American kids. I never really felt that it was a challenge for them. I think they always had a very clear vision. But I can see that it could be a challenge for somebody. You're coming from a different country. It's a whole new system. The school system is very different. In general, I think they had a very positive experience because... my sister was very achieving academically, and then she helped me achieve academically, also try to go into her footsteps. But I would think now probably, how do you parent adults, right? Because we're adults, but they're still, to them, we're still kids. Probably they have to kind of figure that out. I could see that also being kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
And then...
for them to adjust to you.
And then maybe becoming parents for the first time, maybe that's also could be a challenge for the first time. How do
so you don't have any negative bad memory, which is good. Like you don't have any.
I don't think so. Sometimes I ask my parents to compare my sister and I to my nieces, and they always say it's much harder to be parents now than they say. Oh, you were so easy.
Oh, okay.
But I always think they just have. Remembering back, it's always easy, but I'm sure it was hard. My dad, I remember, told me a story. He had to wake up extra early to try to buy milk in the Soviet Union because it wasn't just available at the grocery store. So those kinds of things were challenging, probably when we were very little, just
to get for you guys.
To get things for us in the Soviet Union.
Do you have any challenges with being the child? Like, did you have any challenges with your parents?
Probably some. I'm trying to think in terms of challenges.
I'm thinking like from parenting point of view, like what can we learn something that you really admired, let's put it this way now, that you would like to share that, this is what parents should do with their children? Is there anything?
I think there was one point during the recession a few years ago, I think about 8 years ago, I was looking for a job, and I was at a law school, so I was kind of looking for, I wasn't in between jobs, I was transitioning from being a student to becoming a lawyer, and I was having difficulty finding a job. Everyone was telling me, well, we're letting people go, and I was part of an unemployment group, and we had about 40 people, and normally this group maybe has about 10 people. They had to expand, so all this unemployment, and I remember talking to my mom, and she said, oh, don't worry, you'll find a job. You were educated here, and we had so many difficulties, and we were able to find a job. We weren't educated here, and we have an accent, and we're immigrants, and this, that, and the other. Don't worry. And I kind of didn't believe her. I thought, this is it. How can I find a job? I'll be unemployed for forever. And she said, if the door's closed, find a window. And then if the window's closed, find a chimney. And if I think she said, if you can't use your hands, use your elbows. And she was very, very assertive. Nice. And I really liked that. I thought I kept thinking about that kind of lesson. And she was very like, you got to pound the pavement. And she literally told me you can knock door to door. She said, put on some heels, put on a suit, and start going.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's a very good lesson, and you didn't even remember that. Yeah. I have like kind of... Yeah, so that's very good.
I really like that analogy. She said, if you can't use your hands, use your elbows. So
that's very good. That's good. Well, it means they were very supportive of you.
Oh, yes.
And if parents are supportive, even if you had doubts, you still... went on and got your confidence.
I think she definitely instilled a lot of.
So how is your father in that sense? Like,
I think they're both. I think both, when it comes to children, I think they both kind of both agree. I'm sure they could have some disagreements and everything, but
of course there's always. But this is very important, like big point that how she didn't let you down.
Yeah.
Kept giving you hope.
Oh, yeah.
That's very good. Good. Nice. Anything about, do you notice in your work that adults bully adults?
I was just talking to somebody, and somebody told me that their employer fired somebody because the manager was bullying the associates, and I haven't really seen that too much. I have heard of some instances where a manager pushes people out and people leave because of the manager, but I always think, well, if they're the manager, they choose who they can work with, and of course it's bad for the employee. But if your job, it really depends. But if your job is to manage, then it's kind of, you do kind of have that power. But I guess I would say I've heard about it and I've seen it, but I've never...
Have you seen in children? Do you deal with children in any form in your
job?
Yeah, the younger...
No, I don't deal with kids, but not in my job, but I do see kids. My niece, I should probably ask her. Yeah. I'm sure they talk about bullying a lot.
Because I was wondering, like, you're an attorney, so how would you define people are, like, do you ever say, oh, he or she is bullying somebody, or like...
I think people talk about it in the sense of office politics, of people trying to say, well, I'll do this for you if you do that for me, or they try to block something. So I think that's always a little bit difficult to manage and people manage. But anytime a person has some kind of power, like a manager or someone higher up, I do think there's more opportunity to kind of, I just won't use the term bullying, but there's more opportunity to kind of take advantage of the employee. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about you being from Russia, being from Jewish background, being in interfaith group. One thing that you really like about being from your tradition, and something that you really liked that you learned from any other tradition?
Sure. So I'm Jewish.
You're practicing Jewish?
I'm practicing Jewish. Yeah, I do consider myself practicing.
What does that mean for our listeners?
Sure. So it would mean, for me, means that I do actively try to celebrate the holidays. I do actively consider myself Jewish, and I do try to follow some of the rules. For example, I don't eat pork and I don't eat shellfish. So I think the way I understand it is Judaism believes that you're born Jewish, but when people are babies, they may not know what that means. They're not born with all of the knowledge. So some people identify themselves as non-practicing Jew, means, they're born Jewish, but there's nothing that they do that they would consider to be Jewish. And some people view themselves as practicing Jewish, meaning not only were they born Jewish, but they are actually following the traditions, the culture, the faith. So I consider myself practicing Jewish. And one of the things that I really like about being Jewish is that you can be born into it. Of course, you can also choose. That we do have a conversion process, but I do like the fact that I am just Jewish just by
by birth.
By birth. I kind of like that it's not a choice in the sense that it's just, I think it's just very easy because it becomes part of your identity from day one.
So if you were born in some other faith, then what do you think if you were born in some other faith today?
Well, I don't know enough about religion, but my understanding is some religions you have to do something active to then be considered to be part of that religion, or maybe it's more of a choice. Where I think in Judaism it's the opposite. You can even leave the religion and you can still be considered Jewish.
You're never leaving Judaism.
yeah. I think if
you're born Jewish and that's it. Okay.
I don't quote me on that one. Maybe a rabbi will disagree. But I heard some story that you can convert up to 10 times or something, and they'll still let you back in. Or something
I won't take
that.
this too seriously. If some rabbi is listening, then they can always ask us. So, any other faith or any other tradition that you have learned while you're in your interfaith interactions?
Right.
Something that you like?
I really like when it's so similar. I have done some interfaith work, women's interfaith groups, and one thing that I realize is that we're more similar than we're different, and I always enjoy hearing about that, and I would say, oh, Jewish people do that too. So I remember a few, I think maybe it was one Hanukkah or 2 Hanukkah ago, I said I had attended a talk on Hanukkah and it was lost on me. Whatever the rabbi was telling me, it just seemed really boring. It was really detailed. and it was how and where do you put the menorah, the Hanukkah menorah? And do you put it on the floor? And do you put it on the windowsill? And do you put it by the door? And do you put it outside? And I thought, this is just so silly. And why does it matter? And this is so technical. And this just, how can this be? And this was part of an interfaith women's group, and there was a Muslim woman who said she had the same issue with something similar. And she said there was, I don't know the proper word, but imam or cleric, and that he had made a speech, and he started saying, well, according to these people, it's like this, and according to that people. And her sentiment and my sentiment were exactly the same, where I specifically was looking for the spiritual side or maybe the joyful side of a holiday, and instead I just heard some very nitty-gritty, rule-based contract, what felt like a contract in regards to what do you do, where do you put a menorah. And another person in this group kind of grew up in a more traditional sense, and who was Jewish, and she said, well, aren't you a lawyer, so shouldn't you appreciate this talk? And I thought, well, this is the precise reason that I probably don't appreciate it, because I just want to celebrate a holiday, not listen to a contract.
Interesting.
So I like to hear that commonalities when I have some challenges with a religion. There's also some other religion where people say the same thing.
All the time. Many commonalities.
It's too technical or something like that.
Yeah, I think people make it. I think it's the religions are not so technical, maybe, but nobody quotes us on that. Okay, so tell me about like being a lawyer and being a woman and being Jewish and being like anything good about it while being here, or anything challenging about that, being a woman and a lawyer. How is it?
I think it's always interesting to meet other women attorneys and try to learn their experience. At one point early in my career, I had to go to court. I had to go to Superior Court, and I felt like I was the youngest person there. I felt like I was one of the few women people there, and I was surrounded by middle-aged men. And I also felt like I was the only immigrant there. So when we go up to the court, you have to state your name for the court, and the judge refers you as counselor and last name. So Counselor Smith or Counselor Jones. And the judges could not pronounce my last name, nor did they even try. I was the only one referred to as counselor, and that's it. I had no name.
And they didn't say name. What's your name? What's
my
your
last name is Tsvaygenbaum.
Okay,
so I would
Tsvaygenbaum.
I would say my name is Yelena Tsvaygenbaum, and I represent in the name of the client. And so that was how we had to start. And I think now I'm a little bit more assertive. I would have called the judge's chambers, and it would say, I would really appreciate
If
it
you
you could try to say my name.
It's not so difficult, right?
And so usually the judge would say, can you please spell it for the court? So I would pronounce it really slowly. I would say, Tsvaygenbaum, in hopes that they would get the hint that I would really want them to pronounce it. And I thought that was the difference. The feeling like I'm so new to this, and how do I approach this? And being really bothered and yet not speaking up about the fact that, my last name isn't Sullivan or Flaherty or Smith or Jones or Schwartz.
Yeah.
It is something a little bit more foreign,
rich.
rich, creative. It builds character. I don't know, foreign spelling, I guess.
Well, we have so many names here in America.
Yeah,
they're
you would
not
think
so
that,
simple.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true.
What about, so I'm going to come to this now that I talked about you being in the court and all. Nowadays we know what's happening with women and the harassment cases. Have you ever, I don't know if you want to share that, but have you ever felt harassment while in your work, or have you seen other women going through it, or?
So at one point I had a difficult time, not as a female, but just a difficult time going through a particular matter, again, very early on in my career. So I asked an attorney to come talk to me, a female attorney, and I asked her, how was it like to be a female, and how did you kind of gain respect? Because I felt like maybe it was age, maybe it was whatever it was. I felt like I was the only one. You go to a sea of lawyers, and somehow you're
the youngest,
you're the most different. You don't know what is it that makes me different. Is it my name? Is it my age? Is it my gender?
So you did feel that,
I
right?
did feel it. Yeah, I felt it inside. And so she met me up for lunch, and she was a divorce attorney who did litigation, meaning contentious divorces.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she said one time she went to court, and it got so heated that when she left the courtroom, she got like pushed to the wall, and the other attorney kind of like attacked her or something. So, things got very heated. So I thought, oh my God. And so she started saying that sometimes you kind of have to assert yourself because people don't take you seriously.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of say, hey, I'm here. And I thought that was very interesting because family law, which is where divorce is under, is typically very heavy on women. It's about 50-50, 50 female, 50 males. So I thought it would be one place, at least statistically, where there wouldn't be so much issues because there are a lot of women
who are practicing
in this type of law. So it was interesting to hear. So, and then nowadays, I do notice that a lot of, so lawyers need to bring in clients. So what ends up happening, at least what I've seen, is that lawyers have women clients, meaning they join a women's networking group.
They're more comfortable with them, you think?
I think it's how it's encouraged, or maybe that's just how it's done. I'm not really sure.
What is for you? Like, do you feel more comfortable with doesn't matter what gender the client is?
Well, I always think, in the long term, it probably shouldn't matter. But I do think women may feel differently in terms of how they network versus how men network. And maybe also in terms of the harassment cases, I think this is going to become more common because now no one wants to be accused.
So this way of being with women lawyers, like, somebody would prefer a woman lawyer rather than a male lawyer?
I would say if you're going to a networking event where you're trying to go and meet clients.
For networking is different.
Yeah. So I don't know, and I think maybe some people may disagree, but I would think if you're going to a networking event, maybe you're trying to get a foot in the door in some industry. It may be better to go not just to the construction industry, but to the construction industry for women networking event. That it may be easier because you have something more in common. And maybe the type of topics that you talk about, the type of conversations that you have may be easier.
Yep. Okay, let's come to some important questions that I always ask, or in the last leg of questions. So, what do you like about yourself?
Everything. I'm just perfect.
That's nice.
No.
Why not?
I think more seriously, I just think I have a social sense that I like to interact with people. I like to meet people. So I definitely like the fact that I like to learn about people, and I enjoy that because anytime you meet someone, it's always good to hear their story. And I think I like that about myself, to be inquisitive and to always learn.
Nice. Anything that you would like to change about yourself?
Sometimes I think it's hard to make a decision. And so...
After being a lawyer or attorney?
Yeah. So I think maybe decisiveness about certain things may be best. I just was listening to some motivational videos. It's now becoming 2018, so I started thinking about reflecting. And I saw a video from a motivational speaker about how do you make a decision. They said if it expands your energy, go for it. But if it detracts from your energy, don't. So it's interesting.
That's good. Do you consider yourself mindful or conscious human being?
I like to think that I've started to. I've been actively meditating since this summer, so last few months. I've been interested in meditation for about a year, maybe 2 years, but I joined a meditation group this summer, so I've been going pretty much every week, every other week. So I think I'm becoming more conscious and more mindful as I've decided to
What do you do if you don't mind sharing? Like, what is your meditation, if you can share?
So the meditation, at first I started just doing YouTube videos, and I really liked it, and I thought it gets me out of my head, gets me out of my thoughts, and it's a good way to kind of balance life stresses and kind of provide maybe some winding down relaxation. To me, it's like the gym for the mind. And then I thought I really like to do it on a schedule. So somebody told me about a group, and it took me a long time, but I eventually went, and I find if I go every week, every other week, then I'm organized more. But the way the group works is they have a structure, and you meditate on a structure. And it's a social meditation group, so there's a social component. So then you also talk about the meditation. To me, it's like the gym for the mind.
Nice. Is laughter important for you? Laughter?
Yeah, I think so. I like to watch stand-up comedians a lot. I think one day on a dare, maybe I'll do an open mic night or something. I like to make people laugh.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, so you're not a very serious person, I guess.
I think I come off very serious. I think a lot of people do see a very, very serious side. But I think once they get to know me,
so you have to have that.
But I think once people
learn about
me, they can see a funny side also. Yeah.
That's good. So you appreciate humor.
I do. And I think I've noticed this about myself as the years go on. The type of humor that I like changes, but I do enjoy it.
Nice. Do you feel, one more question regarding the parenting before I get to the last leg of questions. Do you think that parents own their children, or do children come through them?
That's so interesting. I don't think they own their children, but I think when they're younger, they have a huge influence about the kids, and the kids need to ask permission every time to do something.
They have to go through that.
But then once everyone kind of grows up, I do think they're a huge reflection of the parents, so especially when they're younger.
Thank you. Okay, so let's come to this. What is the value of gratitude in your life?
I think when you're thankful, it kind of helps you grow, it helps you reflect, and also helps you be happy. So I always feel blessed. I always say I have a really good group of friends. I have a really strong group of family. And it doesn't matter what happens, that's where they're there for. It's the end of the year, starting the beginning of the year. So it's a really good time to start reflecting and start meeting people up for coffee that you haven't met in a long time, and calling people up and saying, hey, what's going on?
That's good.
I think that's very important, I think.
Good. Thank you. What is to live a healthy, fulfilling life in your viewpoint, as much as you have lived? You are a young person. So
I think the two things that are important is to learn and to give. And so when you're learning, you're always growing, and there's always something new to discover. So you're A, expanding your mind, and B, you're not bored, you're not static, you're dynamic. And I think when you're giving, I think there's something empowering about it, and something very selfless. And it's something that I have been consciously trying to do this particular year, is to actively be more giving. And in some ways, for me, that's to actively be more present, in the sense that we always have a to-do list. We're always thinking, what are we doing next? Where are we going? And instead to just be more present and to give to wherever we're at.
Wonderful. What is the value of time for you?
That's very hard, because we're always on our phones, and everything is always very well timed. There's the alarm clock, the GPS. I'm struggling with that question, but I think we almost put too much emphasis on time, I think.
So what do you think it should be? How it should be? Like, if we don't stress on time?
I think if we all not looked at our clocks and not looked at our watches and just took the time, I think for some people they would do really well. Other people may get lost. They may need the structure. They may need that.
So what type are you? So you don't like too much structure?
I think I need both. I think there are certain times where you just, especially interpersonal connections, you take the time, you talk and see what comes. If everything is, 20-minute blocks, your creative juices aren't really going to flow. Things aren't really going to come out. But at other times, you do kind of have to time yourself. For example, let's say no one wants to exercise, but if you don't kind of force yourself. Also, I do well when I cook with a recipe. Whenever I try to cook without a recipe, it never works. And I always tell myself, I don't need this. I've done this before. But, and I always prove myself wrong, that you really just follow the recipe. If it says 30 minutes, just do 30 minutes. Just do 30 minutes. So,
for the recipes, you have to be timed.
Yes. Yeah, the timer works well.
Nice. What is the purpose of your life? I know you're not at that age that I'm like, okay, you're an 80-year-old woman. Now what is the purpose? Now what is left?
I think the purpose of life is to live it, just to take up everything and to enjoy life to the fullest. Yeah.
Nice. Any examples?
I try to make goals for myself here and there. So I had a goal that I wanted to travel more. So I've been to a couple of places. I went to New Orleans. I haven't been to the West Coast a few years ago, so I made a goal. So I went to San Francisco. Within the United States? San Francisco, United States is such a large country.
It's a huge country.
So I went to New Orleans, I went to San Francisco, and then I did a few trips abroad. I just came back from Ireland, which was really fun.
So you did go abroad? Okay,
I did. Nice. I went to Iceland and I went to Ireland. So both short trips.
Nice. Yeah. How short?
So Iceland, I think, is a 5-hour flight, maybe. Ireland also 5 hours. So maybe Iceland is a 4-hour flight.
But how many days?
They were all less than a week. Okay. They were all.
So which one do you like better?
So Iceland was my first kind of adventure, because I thought I was on the moon. It looked so different. And after that, I became more empowered, more open to doing adventurous things. So I think that kind of changed me a little bit, because I realized I could kind of challenge myself. Ireland was just relaxing and fun.
Nice. And do you have any family there? Or?
No, I just went touristy kind of thing. Went on a tour bus and had fun.
Any message of hope?
Someone once told me this too will change, and I think it could be very viewed as pessimistic, but if we can always view it as optimistic too. That whenever you're in a bad state, you can say, well, this too can change. Being dynamic.
Explain a little more.
So I would say that life is dynamic. So the good thing about hope is that you're looking forward to something that's dynamic. It's not static. Okay. And then if you find yourself static, then think about, well, let's see how I can make it dynamic.
Okay. If you knew this was your last day, what would you do differently?
Oh, differently? What would I do differently?
Yeah. Let's say you don't have, you're Time is ending, so what would you do? What would you want to do?
Well, I think I would just want to spend it with people and, go and interact with my family again, go spend time with my nieces and, do things that expand my energy. So things that are fulfilling. So I find spending time with kids, my sister's kids, very fulfilling.
Good.
And then I could eat anything I want. Donuts.
You don't have to, okay. You already don't you eat all that?
No, I actually try to keep a fairly strict diet.
Yeah,
But
in good shape.
yeah.
Okay, last question.
Yeah.
What lights you up?
That's so hard, right?
Oh, come on. This is the last easiest question.
Now this is the easiest question. I like to dance a little bit. So I think it lights me up is to maybe hear some good music and kind of dance in the car a little bit. It's kind of fun.
Oh, in the car? How do you dance in the car?
Just move your arms a little
That's
bit.
not, okay, that's it.
Well, that's maybe a little bit of a funny, trivial way to answer.
I know.
Trying to think what lights me up. I have to say, because you mentioned parenting, made me think being an aunt really lights me up.
Really?
I think it's fun. You watch the kids grow. You don't have to deal with the discipline. It's the easy part.
Oh,
you get to
you
do
just give them back.
Yeah, you give them back. Exactly. It's just fun to watch things through the kids' eyes.
Wonderful.
And you get all the benefits without all the
responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need to worry about their college fund or anything like that.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much,
you so much,
Yelena.
Joa.
Thank you so much. Thank you for staying with me through this exciting episode. Please don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode of Light Up with Shwa.